Welcome, everybody. You're an Artist on Record, your ultimate intimate conversation with your favorite artist. And who's in the hot seat tonight? The legendary, the master of bass guitar from Mr.Big, David Lee Roth Band. His original band, Talas. He's here to talk about Talas, the new album, 1985. Also, his time with David Lee Roth, and the question that everybody wants to know. Did Eddie Van Halen ever approach him to join Van Halen? That's all happening next. Don't touch that dial. Is this true? Now, was there ever a time that Van Halen approached you about maybe coming in and there was problems with Michael Anthony at one time? Is that true? You know that song?
Do you think I know it?
I don't know. I know it because I used to see this band called Talas, and you're Billy Sheehan. You're an Artist on Record, your ultimate intimate conversation with your favorite artist. Billy, thanks for coming on the show.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
You know, oh man, it's wonderful to have you here. We have mutual friends, you and I. And you know what? I remember going to L'Amour's in Brooklyn, and I used to sneak in at like 84, and I used to see you guys play out there when you were in Talas. And it was bands like you guys were playing the Talas. It was Twisted Sister every Thursday night. There was TT Quick was another one they play, the rock capital of Brooklyn.
Yeah, a lot of bands. I posted one of the posters the other day, and just had a bunch of bands from the day. And some of them are still around and huge, and some of them are gone.
Experience love more.
You guys put out an album. It's called the new album, 1985, and that's coming out on the 23rd of September. Am I correct?
That's correct.
Crystal Clear, which is what a great tune.
Yeah, I love playing. That's one of the songs Mitch Perry brought to the band when he joined. And that and another song called On the Take. Both of those are on the record with Mitch playing guitar on them. And we're glad to have him along for this.
Oh, that's cool. Mitch is a great player. Great player. Been around for, if people who don't know, Mitch also played with Cher for a long time. So one of those.
Yeah. So when she's at the front of the stage, if he's behind her, he gets to see her butt and those assless pants all night long. So it's a plus or a minus, I don't know.
Not a bad gig.
Benefit or reliability, it could have been both.
Not a bad gig. Some musicians might miss home, but if you're looking at that view, you forget about home while you got that.
Or long for it, one of the two.
So, I mean, Talas was one of those bands. It just was Brooklyn's finest. You guys are from Albany, right? Is that Buffalo, right? Buffalo, New York. Buffalo, New York. I'm from Brooklyn, from Canarsie. So I never been up to Albany or Buffalo or none of that.
Yeah, folks downstate there's not a lot of things that go between there. So it was kind of nice coming down from upstate New York, Buffalo. We played in Buffalo, Batavia, Rochester, Syracuse, Albany, and then down south from Albany, Schenectady, Detroit, all the way down through Poughkeepsie, where the Chance was, another famous club, and then down into Brooklyn, and a couple other clubs in that area, the Rising Sun. Plus, we were at striking distance to so many with Boston and Baltimore and all that whole East Coast. All the cities were so close by. Anything that was within 8, 10, 12-hour drive, we could hit.
Yeah.
And once we hit that, anything that was within 10 hours of that was in striking range. So we ended up playing from St. Louis to Chicago to Milwaukee, Toronto, Montreal, Boston, Connecticut, all the Northeast. It was a great scene. That's why we named the record 1985, because in 85 it was just jammed with clubs and bands. Everybody was playing. Deals were getting signed. People were, advancing themselves in their careers. And when I went out to LA in 85, Sunset Boulevard was like Mardi Gras every night. It was amazing. It was six deep on the sidewalk of just rock and roll people and bands. And it was an amazing time. So
it was an amazing time.
1985.
1985, we take it for granted right now, because back then I remember being in the midst of 1985, and the model was for you guys out there, now that I'm receding, but it was thank God I had nice hair back there. The longer the hair, the better the chick. I would get my groove going listening to your live album.
Yeah, that was recorded at the other
Lemore's East.
Queens.
In Queens, Lemore's East. Which was on, and it was on Combat Records, I believe, was the label.
It was. Correct, yeah.
I had the original copy. I wonder if it's worth anything now.
It's worth maybe $10-20.
You know where I bought it? At Zigzag Records in Brooklyn. That was the vinyl record store in Brooklyn where you get all the records of.
Oh yeah, I remember it well. But yeah, an incredible legacy came before us, all fans and players, that really set us up for quite a rich culture of music. And I think that's a wonderful thing. I love a lot of stuff that people wouldn't expect me to love. You know, the Gypsy Kings, or I'm a big Sinatra fan, you know, but I love Accept and Priest, and some electronic dance music I find intriguing also. But my main thing, of course, is rock, and what we did on the Talas record. That's kind of my main. That's my thing. Great things. Now I got to ask you, Talas. You guys, I did 30 dates with Van Halen. Is this? Yeah, we opened in 1980. Wow. So what album was that for Van? What album was that for Van Halen then? Women and Children First. Situation happened. We in Buffalo, we were a pretty big band, and there was local promoters in Buffalo. Every city and every region had local promoters from New York City or the Cleveland area. I forgot some of the names. Famous guys. And in Buffalo, we had a local promoter that bring in all the big bands. So in a huge band, the Stones or Van Halen or the Who would come in. They did all the business, and they hired them and put them in the auditorium and everything. So they were the biggest guys in the music biz in Buffalo, and we were the biggest band. So eventually, by default, they kind of stepped in and started to do some managing for us. So they contacted Premier Talent, which is one of the main booking agencies they dealt with. Premier did the Who and Van Halen and a million other giant bands. And there's a woman by the name of Barbara Skydell, and they sent her our demo. Unknown to us, Barbara sent it to Van Halen. We didn't have any idea where the demo was going to go or who was going to listen to it. And apparently Ed called back and said, yeah, let's have them open up. And so out of nowhere, they come to pick me up for the gig, and I get in the car, and they got a bottle of champagne. I go, and we had just done a whole bunch of other things, you know. And Aerosmith was coming to town, maybe do the opening slap for that. We just did a showcase for a record company. She said, hey, do we get the record deal? No. I go, we open it for Aerosmith? No. I go, well, what is it? He goes, we got the Van Halen tour. I go, what? You know, like, holy cow. Because we love that band. It was just so great. Went out, did about, like I said, 30 shows with them. And I always tell people on their worst night of that tour, they were only spectacular. Every night, just killed it. So great. Wow. What an honor. What an honor. That was amazing, yeah. And you had the best seat in the house. Yeah, we'd always stay, you know, after our show. And they were really nice to us. They let us do encores in a bunch of cities. You know, if we got to sound like we had an encore, they said, go ahead, you know. Really cool with us. And we got to know their crew guys and things like this. And then when they would come touring again through our area, we'd always go to the show and go back and say hi and stuff like that. That was a very nice thing. So that was your first bonding with Van Halen, just to meet the whole cast and crew, just playing with them, right? Back then, did you meet anybody beforehand, or that was it? The first time you met Eddie or Dave? We didn't know them at all. And our first night, we hadn't met anybody in the band at all. We were in the arena, and we got a little dressing room on the other side of the arena from where their whole entourage is housed. And we're sitting in this dressing room. It's kind of an L-shaped room, so I can see the door, whoever walks in, but the people in the room can't see it until they get past the middle of the L. And so I'm sitting right there, and I can see the door and the room. And the door opens up, and later on, the guys in the band and the crew say, you just should have seen the look on their face. The door opens up, and it's Ed Van Halen. The first thing he goes is, which one of you guys is Billy Sheehan? So me. He was a sweet, wonderful guy. I don't know how he heard of me. Maybe through Denny Carmassi, because Denny played in Montrose in San Francisco, and I worked with Denny when we went to England to do the Michael Schenker first record. So that may be what it was from. But he came in and he had heard from me was that was a proud moment of my life that he even knew what my name at all. So, but
Totally.
He turned out later became good friends, and he's a great man, wonderful guy. Changed the world of the electric guitar as we know it, for sure.
It definitely did change the world. Yeah.
Have you seen Junior's group?
Definitely is one of those cats that came in here and just, yeah, he was just a genius, a genius. So there you go. You go from there to play with Roth. I mean, back then, that's like Roth is like he was just the Elvis of frontmen. You know, there was nobody touching him.
The rock star in the world at that time. The 1984 record was huge. Yeah. And while we were with Talas, there's another series of phone calls. We had just showcased, I think, for Danny Goldberg from Gold Mountain Records. So we got a call. The William Morris agency wanted to sign us and put us on tour with Yngwie. Great. The tour starts in LA in a couple of weeks. All right, great. And then we got the call from Danny Goldberg. They're going to sign us to Gold Mountain Records. I thought, wow, this is unbelievable. Then a third call came in. That's all in the same time period. Some weird thing happening. And it was David Lee Roth's office saying he wanted to talk to me about being in his movie. I said, what? Being in your movie? I had no idea. So since I was going out to LA, I had a day off before the first show of the tour, and then we'd be traveling the whole time. So I got in touch. So I'll be there for a day, so I can come out. And so sure enough, they came and picked me up, and I went out to Dave's house and went to him and was talking about it. He goes, well, there is a movie, but the real story, they got to keep it a state secret. You can't tell anybody. The real story is I quit Van Halen and I want to start a band. So you and me, let's find a guitar player and drummer and do it. And I said, okay, I'm in. So the bad part of that was for the whole rest of that tour with Talas and Yngwie, we had a great tour. Yeah. Every night was jam-packed. People were going crazy. Everything was looking really great. But in the background, I'm going, sorry, guys, but I can't pass this one up, So, and there was during that time period, it was a high pressure situation too, because though we got a record deal, as you know, getting a record deal doesn't guarantee anything. It doesn't even guarantee your record's going to come out.
Yeah,
it's a precarious. So I'm thinking, man, if this falls through and I'm left high and dry again, I don't know how many shots I'm going to have at this. So when Dave called, I said, a bird in the hand is worth two in the book. And I went out to LA. So that was quite and again, in summer of 85, that was when it all went down. And like I said before, Sunset Boulevard was just lined with rock and roll. And it was an amazing thing. And then, we got Steve Vai in the band and Greg Bissonette, and went off on our merry way and did the Eat 'Em and Smile record and tour. And it was quite an adventure, to say the least.
What a great record, too. What a great record. I mean, you had the ultimate band, too. Roth really put together a great band. And
yeah, he was incredible to be around. I learned a lot from him, and man, he was the best rock front man ever.
Billy, the one of the, if it wasn't for Roth, you wouldn't have the Vince Neils and all these other guys. He came out with the Lion, they had the blonde hair. I mean, he really was so electrifying, and he was an entertainer. He took the old vaudeville,
I know,
and he just mixed it up in this blender of Broadway and rock and roll, and he was the ultimate front man. In 1985, you mentioned his name. There was nobody who could touch him.
Oh yeah, that's true. So great. And I loved his voice too. I was a big fan of his Ice Cream Man. I love his voice in that. And And now they have the isolated tracks that float around the internet. And a while ago, they put out "Running with the Devil" with all the woo ha, all the screams and yells in it. And I think whoever put it out, it's just Dave's voice, right from the track. I think when they first put it out, they thought it'd be people would laugh at it because he made all these noises and stuff. But listen to him sing, and he's right on. His pitch is perfect. His timing is great.
All right, boys. I'm putting my banana Dixie cups.
And so I was really a fan of his musically and lyrically too. I just finished Ted Templeman's book, and Ted talks about Dave's his lyrics and the quality and depth of them, instead of just "I love you, baby." It's there's a story and meaning there that I love very much.
I mean, being on the road with Roth and learning so much from this guy, did you learn? Did you dig more into your roots from jamming with Roth? Would he take a lot of the old school and say, "Hey, try this or try that"?
Yeah. There was we'd reference. A lot of times, ZZ Top would get, hey, what's that? A little more ZZ Top in that. It'd be that shuffle, but fast, like Hot the Teacher. And that was basically, I heard it on the X, a kind of similar groove, not as Texas and bluesified, more heavy-eyed and rocked, but still, and everybody gets it from somewhere. I used to collect a lot of bootlegs. I have them all in digital now, all my CDs I've ripped, but all the bootlegs I collected over the years, I've got some really priceless ones. And I got the Beatles' first demo that they handed into, I think it was EMI Records in England. And there's 20 songs on it.
Wow.
And guess how many are originals?
Originals on the 20 songs? I would say there's more covers. I would say 4 originals, 5?
None.
Not
one. And back in the day, it wasn't until the Beatles and Bob Dylan and a few other artists really became strong writers and wrote their own songs. Prior to that, and the Beatles' first record, "A Taste of Honey, Please, Mr. Postman."
That's right.
It was 4 or 5 Twist and Shout songs that were not theirs, And so, being a writer and a musician, Elvis never wrote anything. Frank Sinatra never wrote anything, So you rely on songwriters. So it's kind of an interesting thing that you rely on the things you played when you were younger as your template, if you will, for your songwriting. I played in the copy band. I've got bootlegs of Van Halen playing almost the same set list as Talas did in the clubs. 49 by the James Gang. I forget now, but there's a whole list of songs that we all played those songs.
Yeah.
But then when you go to write songs, you've got that kind of in your DNA. And we did a whole medley of The Who and some King Crimson and tons of Zeppelin and Stones and Hendrix and Beatles. So all that stuff kind of gets in you, and it starts to come out when you write. I found another great collection online of songs the Beatles listened to. And it was all the songs of their youth that they listened to and they got music from. People that they referenced in interviews, and somebody tracked them all down. And it was amazing because when you listen to it, you hear a little bit of, there's that chunk from Sgt. Pepper's right there. So it's not a bad thing to borrow from what came before you. I always give credit for it, of course.
Yeah.
But everyone does it. Everyone it takes from someone before. Even Bach, I think Telemann was a composer prior to Bach. When you listen to Telemann, they go, hey, I think I know where Johann got it from.
But now I got to ask you, is this true? Now, was there ever a time that Van Halen approached you about maybe coming in, that there was problems with Michael Anthony at one time? Is that a true rumor, or is it just, that is, huh?
Yeah, I talked with Ed a bunch of times. Actually, I went in more recent times after Dave and Sammy. I went up to the house and jammed with Ed and Al. And I wonder who's got that tape. Somebody somewhere.
Wow.
And we talked here and there. And in retrospect, I love and respect Michael Anthony. And as a fan, I hate to see a band change players. I remember when Jethro Tull had Glenn Cornick on bass, and another Martin Barr on guitar. And then the next record came out, and that one guy was gone. And you're like, wait, what happened? And it was, as a fan, it always threw me when they changed members. So that was in the back of my mind. Going, man, I would love to. Of course, if an actual offer would have come through, I would have absolutely said yes. But we talked about it and discussed it. There was no paperwork or lawyer, which there would have had to have been. But we talked about it. I jammed with them. We had phone conversations about it. But I love Michael, and he's great in that band. And the bootlegs I have of them in the clubs, he's killing it. He's playing great, and he sang his ass off. And so I was torn. And I think in the end, the harsh reality of it was, as we see later on some of the things they did, I think they thought, well, we could get this guy from Buffalo in here and pay him $500 a week and let him sleep in a Motel 6, and he'll think he died and went to heaven. So because I think initially Van Halen was an equal four-way split, and they didn't like that, and they started splitting it differently. So I think they thought maybe they could bring me in, pay me as a sideman, and I still would have thought I was the king of the world there. It wouldn't have got a complaint from me. So I think, a little bit humbling, but I think that may have been some of the motivation as well. And I don't know how I would have had to alter a lot of my stylings, because I was generally playing in bands, not unlike, though I'm not comparing myself to him, John Entwistle. He could move around a lot because Pete Townsend was hitting these huge chords, not whittling or playing a lot. So I would have had to have taken over that, taken a different role as a bass player, which I love doing and I'm happy to do. But I had a thing, and it was starting to get some traction and all that. But I consider it a great honor that I know any of them, that I've spoken with any of them, that I've played with or recorded with. I'm the only guy that ever played with every member of Van Halen.
Wow, that's pretty wild. Yeah.
So Sammy, I've jammed with him just a couple months ago in Chicago. And Michael's up on stage too. I also did a thing with Michael earlier with the keyboard player from Uriah Heep, Ken Hensley. We all got up and did Easy Living with me and Michael. Gary Sharon, I did the Who tribute with Mike Portnoy, Paul Gilbert, Gary. And then Ed and Al up I did a live show with Ed once. And then jamming with Ed and Al in the studio too. So that was, but I even played with Wolfie, even though he was a little tiny kid. After we did the live show in Chicago, me, Ed Van Halen, Pat Torpy, and Steve Lukather. Ed flew home and he asked me if I would like to go home. I said, yeah. So I flew with him, and he had his son with him. So Ed wanted to sleep. So I said, don't worry, I'll help out there. So I asked the flight attendant for some paper, and we drew animals and letter games, and I kept him occupied while Ed slept. I remember he looked over at one point and goes, man, you make a good father. I go, yeah, I'll stick with my cat. Thank you very much. But so I did technically play with him, but not music. But I saw him recently. Wolfie is just great. Just a really his own self, doing his thing. You see the legacy of his dad, but he's not overshadowed by it. And I'm very, very pleased to see that.
Great having you here. Links for Billy down below, everybody. I want you to click on it, follow him, check out his YouTube channel. It's a lot of fun, especially if you're a gearhead. This man right here will teach you all. And if you write to him, he might write back to you. But Billy, thank you so much. All righty.
My pleasure.
That was Billy Sheehan. And also, if you like this episode, subscribe, give us a thumbs up, and share this with somebody who loves rock and roll as much as we do. All links are down below. Until then, check out our other playlists. Click on the box up here. And remember, it's only rock and roll, and we like it. Who loves you, baby? We do. Now get out of here, you crazy kids.